Hello, welcome to Breakfast Central this beautiful Thursday, reaching you live from our headquarters on Wemco Road, Lagos, Nigeria. Should I give them the
Should have given them the exact number,
GPS location,
you know, post code.
Yes.
You should have told them who is going to be at the security post. You know,
from Wemco Road to the wall.
It's okay.
You're welcome to Breakfast
they are
Central.
Coming to look for you, so that you know they will not know where to look for you.
It's fine. We're doing the work. We're doing the work of the Lord. You're welcome to Breakfast Central, your #1 destination for all things good. The right place to start your day. We've got news for you. We've got insightful conversations. We've got brilliant analysis. And today, as always, we have quite a lot in store for you. So grab your coffee, sit back, relax, and welcome to the program.
Well, my co-host has said to grab my coffee, which is exactly what I'm doing.
We don't have time.
Oh,
okay.
Yes. You are welcome to Breakfast Central. Thank you for joining us this morning. It's a Thursday, lovely Thursday morning, a wet morning in Lagos. Regardless of where you are, we hope that the weather is favorable for you and that you're very excited about the stories that we're about to bring to you today. I am Olive Emodi, and thank you for joining us. Well, I'm not very excited about the story that I'm about to share because I took it when we're looking at what Nigerians are saying. Benga took it for Which Way Nigeria. The whole country has been talking about the poor, really, really poor results released by JAMB. Out of about 1.5 million students who applied for the exams scored lower than 200, which was such a terrible, result, such terrible cutoff. And here on the show, we shared students and parents who raised alarm, saying that when they did the year before, it was a lot better and that this year was terrible. Initially, there were those who criticized, like a certain man who said that they didn't feel JAMB because of any glitches. It was more of the nonchalance on the part of the students who were partying, TikTok, social media, were distracted, sort of taking the blame away from where it ought to be, and making the students the ones to entirely bear the blame. However, JAMB has officially taken responsibility. We can see here Professor Ishaku explaining and taking responsibility. And he breaks down in tears at some point. But let's take a listen.
Accept the explanation I've given as the truth on this matter. I apologize and take full responsibility, not just in words. I want to say a big thank you to all of you, and may God bless us all. Accept the explanation I've given as the truth on this matter. I apologize and take full responsibility, not just in words.
And that is the registrar of JAMB, Professor Ishaku, who broke down in tears whilst admitting to the errors that JAMB, that they had certain errors. In fact, there's a more detailed explanation of what happened and how their system failed them because they are trying to do certain updates, But I think very importantly is the response again of JAMB.
Who's the handler of JAMB? What's the meaning of man proposes?
Man proposes, God disposes. It has been established that a technical glitch affected 157 centers out of the 887 centers in the 2025 UTME. This was basically responsible for the general low performance of the candidates scheduled to sit sit for the examination in those centers. Now, in the following thread, they went forward to say, as such, all the affected candidates will be contacted to reprint their examination slips towards retaking the examination starting from 16th May to 2025.
I mean, the good news is they're taking remedial efforts, but let's take the... Okay.
No, we'll take the reactions much later when we're looking at what Nigerians are saying. But I think that a general sense of what this is first of all gross negligence, because you can't be the handler of such a body, and this is the response that you give to Nigerians. Man proposes, God disposes. It's a terrible way.
It's a slap on the face of millions of Nigerians.
Yes, bear in mind that this particular exam had lots of criticism. Unfortunately, reports reaching us is that a 19-year-old girl, Faith Timlane, died as a result of this. There were parents who remember the ordeal of them leaving their houses early to be able to get to the centers. So first of all, it was even very complicated enough for them to write the exams. There were criticisms surrounding that one, and now the results have been released. We need to leave God alone out of certain things. God had nothing to do with the failure here. God had nothing to do with system and structure that failed, because people did not do their due diligence. People didn't do the work they were supposed to do, and people need to be taking, to take responsibility for this failure, for the loss that we're experiencing.
And why was JAMB being so defensive the first time? Only for you to come and write, "Oh, God proposes, man disposes."
I think it's typically our Nigerian style, because yes. I don't think that they
saw the blowback.
Yes, I don't think they thought it would become this big of an issue. I don't think they realized how big it would blow into the situation. But because of the consistent push, they now finally had to respond. And I must really, really give kudos to Alex Otti, the CEO of Educare, because he was on top of it. He was raising awareness. He was recruiting parents, collecting and collating evidence from students as well. So kudos to Alex Otti. I don't think we're out of it yet.
Exactly. Let them do the remedial test, which I understand the date clashes with chemistry, the chemistry practicals for WAEC. So I wonder what they'll do about that again. But kudos to all of the people that raise awareness on this issue. And also to Professor Ishak Oloyede for, admitting it's very rare that you see the head of a government agency in Nigeria own up and take responsibility when things go wrong. So
but then the question now is that good enough, right? Because unfortunately, when there are actions, there have to be repercussions.
Consequences.
There have to be consequences. Thank you very much for that. People have died, or someone has died as a result of this. Right, there are people who have been depressed. Some children have been been thrown into depression because of this JAMB result. You will see parents saying their kids have not been
at his table.
Right. So the question is, do we have consequences? I feel like, again, because we're a nation that lacks. I don't want to use those exact words, but impunity is really one of our challenges.
Yes, and there are no consequences for bad behavior. So we see this. Most people will say, "Oh, he's done enough. He even cried on national TV." But in other crimes, you don't even need to tell him. People have handed in their resignation for lesser offenses or for lesser things that happened, or the authorities will take matters into their hand. I relieve him of his appointment that this is gross negligence. You should have done a troubleshoot of and tested the systems. You should have fixed the glitches.
Use students' life to
exactly. I was a guarantee that when they take this remedial examination, that there won't be glitches.
And what is even the guarantee that it only affected these 380,000
exactly.
people?
The number could be more out of 1.5 billion.
Because what we have seen is inconsistent statements from them. So it's almost like you can't trust what they're saying and confirm that it is true.
They need to do something about the handler.
No, they need to let go of that handler. They need to let go of that handler.
Doesn't have any public relations.
He may have better skills in the IT department or some other department at JAMB HQ, but certainly not on social media. Remember that some days ago, he responded to someone telling them, mind your language.
Olive, mind your words.
You're not a person. If it's your personal handle, say whatever you want, do whatever you want, handle it however. But you are representing a body, knowing that whatever you tweet, you're tweeting on behalf of that person. There's certain protocol that should be employed when it comes to handling social media. You shouldn't even put out anything relating to a matter if there hasn't been an official press release on it. So what should have been put out there should have been the official press release, and leave it at that. Social media handlers need to be trained on, because they are also crisis management. You are a crisis manager or you are a crisis starter. So they need to be trained on social media communication skills, how to put out fires, how to be empathetic. Their tweets have been lacking in empathy. The closest to empathy we've seen from JAMB so far is Professor Ishak Oloyede crying on TV. That's the closest to empathy we've been seeing.
They need to do better. Well, let's move on to other matters in our wake-up conversation this morning. This is one story that's been making the rounds on social media. 30% of Lagos State government workers on training abroad absconds, says the commissioner. That's what you call inside your japa, another japa inside. Wow. I mean, what were the conditions for giving them visas in the first place? Why are they being trained abroad? What level of management or what civil service cadre are they for them to be able to, leave everything you work for in Nigeria, in Lagos, and decide not to come back from your training? Or maybe they are taking extra lessons, more training. I mean, if 30% of trainees don't return, is Lagos State training program poorly managed? These are some of the questions we are asking. What does this say about working conditions in Lagos if 30% of your trainees are running away?
So just to clarify, the Commissioner for Establishments and Training, Afolabi Ayontayo, disclosed this during a press briefing on Wednesday in Lagos to mark the second anniversary of Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu's second term in office. Now, he was responding to a journalist when the journalist was asking the state government about their goal for building a better workforce through international training. And this is them mentioning that it has been affected by the growing Japa syndrome, which is a slang, of course, used to refer to people leaving the country. They say while 70% returned, 30% failed to come back. According to him, a total of 23,420 staff members benefited from various training interventions between May 2022 and December 2024. Within the same period, over 185 training programs were organized, which cut across multiple cadres, skill levels, and thematic areas relevant to public sector efficiency. So, basically, 8,000 civil servants across various ministries, departments, and agencies have been granted study leave in the last year to improve their qualifications and skills. So, this is his own responsibility. He is the Commissioner for Establishments and Trainings. Their work is to ensure that these people keep up with global best practice. I mean, you saw the other day in River State where the lawmakers went there to observe legislative training, right? So I'm all for training abroad. If we see that there's a course that can benefit or that can teach, or help better I don't know about sending everybody, maybe send one or two people, let them go learn and come and replicate here, right? However, this is indicative of a much bigger problem. The fact that people are not happy with the quality of life that they have here, such that they will risk everything for an opportunity to step foot abroad. Once they do, they are gone.
I mean, what happens when you overstay your visa?
Did they tell you that they consider that? Every day we're hearing of people seeking asylum.
I mean, for people that are part of the Lagos State Civil Service, and for them to, give up everything. They have job security, they're guaranteed a pension, and for you to abandon that shows a level of desperation.
So there are two things. I'm also not going to excuse it because it is bad behavior. It is bad behavior for you to be taking with trust to another country because they're trying to invest in you.
I mean, for you to be taken means you're one of the best in the first place.
Exactly, means you're a staff employee. So for you to be selected, sent abroad for training, and then you betray the trust of your employers, and you also commit a crime because you are then going to overstay, most likely overstay, and become an illegal.
And you think the embassy will be happy to
Exactly. So that is a crime. We're not in any way, shape, or form excusing that. It is bad behavior.
Lessons for Lagos State since there's a new presidential policy on buying Nigeria. Please, next time, take your trainings to places like Ikogosi in Ekiti State or Obudu-Katoran. So if your staff want to run away, they can go to the beautiful country of Cameroon. If it's Obudu, if it's Ikogosi, you can go to Republic of Benin. Yes, Japa to African countries.
African countries, right? But then, I mean, as funny as it sounds, I think just a reminder
they don't need to go abroad.
Exactly.
They should do online training.
So
they should use the money to fix street lights and infrastructure.
So that's exactly what I wanted to say, that we now need to look for alternative means because the world is a global village. If there is a training happening abroad, you can facilitate it in such a way that whoever is the trainer abroad can do a Zoom session.
Do you know how many courses I've done?
Everybody in their houses will come to work, and whilst they're there, they will be connected, plugged into the system, and they will be trained there. So we need to start looking for alternative measures. And yes, we still need to train staff. I think organizations, employers of labor need to train their staff, right? This, again, is a wake-up call for us that people are not quite happy. And it's unfortunate because those Nigerians who have done this are part of the people that are giving us a bad name. It's why when every day you go to the embassy, the visa rules are becoming stricter because they think you're. So I will now live here.
People have messed
I'm
up
going
the
to another
opportunity
country.
for all the people.
Exactly. I have a good job here. I have a good life in Nigeria. But then they start looking at me some type of way because Lagbaja and Olorun Toba had fled their own and overstayed their own visa. So we need to do better. It's not a good look for our country. And if you or anybody you know is planning to do that, please, I don't know.
Lagos State government used the Buy Nigeria policy. If it's necessary to train people with global best practices abroad, do it online. I mean, just when do you think I do a lot of online courses?
When do you think I get a broadcaster of global repute?
All this intelligence I exhibit on a daily basis, don't you think is from online intelligence?
I know it's from online intelligence. I know you are doing the work. So
thank you very much, my
well
sister.
Done, well done. But yes, we need to do better, and the goal should not be to Japa. And I mean, if you want to Japa for whatever reason, we're not in a position to tell you to not look for greener pasture. But if you're doing that, it has to be the legal way and not the illegal way, because it's also a risk for you. The day they catch you from wherever you are straight back to Nigeria, nothing for you. You're starting from the scratch when you could have built a good life for yourself here. And also, it's not a good look for the country. But still speaking about Lagos State, reports we have are that Lagos State is looking to implement monthly and quarterly rent, which has come into the fore of conversations because in the past few weeks we have been talking about, not just us here on the show. We did have we had the commissioner of the commissioner of information came as well, but we've had a few people join us on the show to talk about the unfortunate exorbitant cost of rent. We had agents, we had lawyers, and everybody's talking about how rent in Lagos is ridiculously expensive. In response to that, they say Lagos is a mega city, everybody is moving to Lagos, so there's so much demand, and it's a bit difficult to regulate the pricing with the landlords as well, because these landlords, I mean, inflation is touching everybody, and there's always demand for their products.
I mean, for some of them, it's the only business they have, so they're also part of society. But if A doesn't take the house, B is there ready to take the house.
There's
a market.
I do think that this is a laudable initiative. Monthly rent, quarterly, I mean, outside Nigeria, people are able to plan their finances. So if, for example, I earn 200,000 naira and I get an apartment that says, you know what, we're going to charge you 1 million a year, right? And you're going to pay less than 100,000. I'm able to say, okay, when I get my 200,000, I'll remove maybe 80 or so a month for my rent, remove the one for feeding, remove the one for transportation, and people can plan their lives around it. So I think it's a great idea. I know that they are...
But I'm more concerned about the practicality of it. How enforceable is this?
So I know that there are people that have started this model. There's... Tunde Balogun, Olatunde Balogun, I know this.
Rent small.
Yeah, he used to do this, and we thought it was a great initiative as well for young people, because what he did with Rent Small was giving them the opportunity to, rent monthly and rent quarterly. And I know that they have a model that they have used. So I think that what the government should also do is to collaborate with individuals, organizations, small and medium businesses that have already started this, to be able to take their models. What they do is, they say to the landlords, you subscribe to a platform. So it's now, when you subscribe to the platform, I think you pay monthly. Whoever is managing the platform then manages the property for the landlord.
Facility,
So it's almost like you're removing your hand from it. There's a management agency that handles it.
If government wants to set a precedent, they should build mass housing and then use this as a pilot, because you are not going to, or they should have private and government partnerships in order to drive adoption.
If they can enforce it into legislation, I don't know how that is going to work. It's possible. I mean, the Section 1 of the Land Use Act, first of all, will tell you that all land belongs to the governor, the governor of the state. So I know the government can still work a way around it. And first of all, I want to applaud the government for thinking of ways to be able to mitigate the unfortunate harshness that rent has cost people in Lagos.
Absolutely. So kudos to Lagos State government. We'll see how this works, and landlords should please also bear with millions of Nigerians, millions of Lagosians. The economy is taking a toll on many people, and we want you to do your business with a human face.
Yeah, and also to just use this as an opportunity to ask people if this is an initiative they're excited about. Because I remember seeing this on a post on Instagram, and the comment section, people were saying, no, please leave it at yearly. We're okay like this. Some people were not very excited about it because they're worried about the fact that if it becomes monthly, the overhead would be slightly more. So, for example, if the rent for the apartment was 1 million a year, they would typically pay maybe 80,000 a month. But because it's now monthly, they'll be made to pay 100,000 a month. So it will mean more for them in the course of the year. But it will just help them to be able to plan their finances better. But let us know what you think about this. Are you excited about the possibility of paying monthly rent, quarterly rent? Unfortunately, we're still talking about this, and some people are still collecting 2 years' rent. There are laws around that, and if you'd like to find out what the laws are saying, we've had a lawyer and a real estate agent on the show to talk about it. So check our previous interviews here on Breakfast Central when we dealt with the soaring rent prices in Lagos. All right, and that's all we have this morning for Wake Up Conversations. Let's now share with you what's happening this morning on Breakfast Central. JAMB admits to error in 2025 UTME examination with the registrar offering an apology. Nnamdi Kanu court accepts Gulak's death certificate as evidence. Now, still looking at the top stories this morning, we'll be looking at the Labour Party leadership crisis as it persists. Otti, Obi keep mum. Lawmakers back Wike. They seek focus on education, security, and healthcare. And we'll review the front pages of the newspapers this morning. That's all that we have. Join us for all these and more.
You're welcome back to Breakfast Central. The Nigerian Senate has passed for the second reading for the 2025 statutory budget of the Federal Capital Territory Administration. Valued at over 1.7 trillion naira, the bulk of the budget is earmarked for capital projects across the territory. During the debate on the bill's second reading, senators threw their weight behind the FCT Minister, Nyesom Wike, but also raised key concerns about infrastructure, housing, security and social welfare. News Central's National Assembly correspondent Sagir Ibrahim reports from the Red Chamber.
On Wednesday, with the 2025 FCT appropriation bill topping the order paper. Leading the debate on the second reading, Senate Leader Okwemi Bamidele revealed that 1.289 trillion naira out of the 1.78 trillion naira FCT budget was designated for capital expenditure.
Emphasis has been placed on the completion of ongoing projects, particularly those with high impact on the provision of services and infrastructure to the residents of the Federal Capital Territory. However, a few new projects that are considered absolutely necessary have also been included in the budget proposal.
Following the motion, lawmakers took turns to voice their thoughts, with some calling for urgent action to tackle illegal settlements and others calling for more efforts in infrastructure development across education, healthcare, and security.
We have seen the revolutionary infrastructure taking place, and all we need to do as the State House of Assembly of the FCT is to keep on tracking revenues and the utilization of those revenues. I think the poor can be accommodated with correct infrastructure, water, healthcare, education in those areas, and it's properly planned, and they can locate and live there peacefully. When the roads are provided in those areas and water and other infrastructure are laid, the prices of land will come down.
A state of insecurity as it were sometimes in our space, but one is encouraged that a lot of attention has been given to this. There has been clear improvement in respect of the architecture, but this is to be maintained.
In his remarks, Senate President Godswill Akpabio commended the Minister of the FCT, Nyesom Wike, for aligning with the President's renewed hope agenda and delivering visible results within a short time.
The FCT is exploding in terms of population, and so we should plan for schools, we should plan for healthcare, and we should also plan for water and sanitation. so that in future we don't turn some areas into slums.
After deliberations, the bill was passed for second reading and then referred to the committees on the Federal Capital Territory and the Federal Capital Territory Area Councils and ancillary matters for further legislative work. The committees are expected to report back to the Senate within 1 week.
Well, very great to see the work that is being done. The Red Chambers, there's a lot of expectation that have been placed on the Red Chambers in terms of ensuring that we see that legislation is wielded in the interest and the development of the quality of life of the Nigerian people, and not the bickering that we sometimes get to say. I mean, bickering cannot be avoided, but it feels like, particularly, we talked about this, the 10th Assembly, and how the impression that a number of Nigerians have had about them is it's not been the best impression, apart from them being positive. Yes, it's not the most positive. Apart from them being referred to as rubber stamp, it's also them living, you know, in lavish lifestyles, especially because the statement of the senator
reflective of the current economic situation.
So there's a disconnect. They feel like there's a disconnect between their reality and the reality of the average Nigerians. But I'm very happy by this. Yes,
planning for the future, and they're very. I mean, there's a master plan for the FCT. The right thing to do is when you have planned cities to expand and plan for the future. Yes. So we'll go on a quick break, and when we return, we'll bring you more stories here on Breakfast Central. So stay with us.
Federal lawmaker representing Ethiop East and Ethiop West Federal Constituency of Delta State and the chairman of the House Committee on the Niger Delta Development Commission, Erhiatake Ibori-Suenu, has called for the establishment of the Customs Training College and the Federal Paramedics College in Delta State. Ibori-Suenu, who had earlier presented the bills on the floor of the House of Representatives during plenary, proposed to establish the Federal Paramedics College in Isiokolo, Ethiop West, and the Customs Training College in Ethiop West local government areas of Delta State. Aides to the lawmaker spoke exclusively to New Central Television in Abuja, saying that the colleges will boost human capacity development of youths in the area, as well as drive economic growth and increase the revenue base of the state.
By virtue, having built economic activity in the area, having stimulated the economy of the area, it is also important that you empower or you develop the human capital. And you cannot develop the human capital without creating institutions, you know, because it is the human capital that will get involved in the economic activities of the area. The primary focus of the Customs Training College is to build human capacity, to improve the human capacity that is involved in custom activities in Nigeria. And you know that will also help to increase the revenue base of the country by virtue of the performance of the customs as the days go by. It's on record that at the moment we have just one custom training college in Nigeria, and it is situated in Gwagwalada. So the establishment of a second one is to create ample opportunity for training of the personnel of the Nigeria Customs.
Honorable Erhiatake Ibori-Suenu is Delta's export to the world. We say so because as the first time I'm coming up with an establishment bill, it speaks volume. Now let's take a look at the establishment of the Custom Training Institution, Ogara. The fact remains that Ethiop Federal Constituency hosts the deepest river port in Africa, the River Ethiop, for the records. More so, Ethiop Federal Constituency is in the hub of the Niger Delta.
And now moving on to other stories. In recent times, the River State waterways seem to be under siege in the hands of suspected oil bunkers and kidnappers. In the last 1 week, 3 separate kidnap incidents have been recorded on the waterways, coming after 6 abducted travelers were released in April. News Central's Biola Festus has been tracking the development and now brings us this report.
Now this water since last week Tuesday. Why can't my people put this suicide boat? Let them bring out that exam. Since last week Tuesday, why can't I see that?
On the 7th of May, a passenger boat conveying 13 persons, including candidates for the West African Examination Council, WAEC exams, went missing. Ibori-Suenu, mother of one of the candidates, has come to the waterside in search of her son. Staring at the same spot where her only child boarded the boat, the agonizing mother ponders if that was a goodbye.
I don't get plenty. No, let that one I get. Let that begin. People say the hotel go get. I don't see girl. I don't know how one of us. I don't see girl me to man. With all those family get my love. When they promise to go baby salary every month.
This is the only means of our livelihood. The waterways. We are fishermen. We carry our food from the city into the villages, and they come and carry us. What do you want us to do?
The spate of piracy attacks and kidnappings on the Port Harcourt-Bile waterways in Rivers State has become a thriving business for the men of the underworld, but throwing families into distress. Families of these teenage victims are left without signals on where to look in search of their words.
No information up to date. We have been praying that let there be information, but no way till now.
We've lost a lot of properties, we've lost a lot of our children, we've lost a lot of our husbands, we've lost a lot of our brothers. You see, pirates own our boats, they are raping our children, they are raping our girls. We are calling on the federal government to come to our aid.
You have been in these kidnappers then. You told me your experience and what they did to you. Yes. Do you feel sorry for these teenagers who are currently in these kidnappers then?
Yes, I'm very sorry for them because it's not easy. See, I was there. I was one of the victims. It was not easy for me there. It was very painful. The things was too much. So I want the government to come to our rescue.
The people of Bile are even more concerned that amidst all the complaints, the government seems unbothered.
The only means of our transportation is the waterways. So we really honestly need to look into this and help us. Not everybody coming on TV and saying we are doing this, we are doing. Nothing has been done. Nothing. As of today, nothing has been done. Since the 6th of May till today, nothing. I'm just seeing news here, news there. I haven't seen people in the cribs looking for these children.
All this is that they do. Me and the para, they vest. My other brother inside. Make them come and do what they're supposed to do. All this is that they do. They go there for there. They stand on up and down. Meanwhile, people life. They are things for river. Make the government come do what they're supposed to do. We didn't fear them. Oh. These person they don't get 2 heads. Now one they get, but just because they control, I think we calm down. We calm down, don't mean say we don't know ourselves.
Those living in coastal communities have indicated support for security operatives for adequate surveillance of hard-to-reach creeks and creeklets.
What we want the government to do is to partner with the community so that the community and the government, the security agency, can work together to ensure that they comb and smoke those aslands in the river. If not so, we don't think this thing will stop because the locals know the creek more than the security agents that are coming from outside.
This harrowing ordeal is further complicated as the kidnappers are reportedly disguised as security personnel.
Sometimes they disguise themselves with some kind of beep. Sometimes they wear military uniform, which sometimes gives us a lot of problems.
These people boarding the boat are either going to Boni, Bile, or Nembe. Now, the striking thing is that this is the only route to Bile community in Degama local government area of Rivers State. Now, in recent months, there have been increased rate of piracy attacks on this waterway, with several people being kidnapped. These people have been crying out and calling on the federal government for intervention. From Bile Waterside in Rivers State, Biola Festus for News Central.
It's a really heartbreaking scenario to see there. Just looking, I'm seeing some of the recent incidents. For example, May 2025, pirates abducted 19 passengers from boats en route to Bonny Island. We also have April 2025, 6 travelers kidnapped on the Bile-Port Harcourt Waterway and were released paying a combined ransom of 28 million naira following 12 days in captivity. April 2025, 20 passengers traveling from Oron to Cross River State were abducted by gunmen suspected to be pirates. Same April 2025, 5 passengers were kidnapped between Degema and Akukutori local government areas. There really is a concern here.
What the role of the Nigerian police is. They have a marine division. There has been repeated incidents of piracy on this waterways, and they're yet to do something about it. It's heart-wrenching. I can imagine what the families are going through.
Absolutely.
The people deserve better. After one incident is a tragedy. For each to occur several times leaves a lot of questions to be answered.
Sitting on a can warm. What these recurring attacks have done is that they've instilled fear in the people. They've disrupted their economic lives and their businesses, and they've just caused some measure of instability in the region. So we do hope that something is done soon and very quickly, and that, I mean, seeing that mother talking about the last time she saw her son who took a boat to go and write an exam, and that was the last time she's seen him. It's just a heartbreaking thing. No mother, no parent, no person deserves to go through that. What again is the quality of the life of a Nigerian person? What is the value of a Nigerian life? I'm hoping that we can start to reprioritize that. So when we do, we're looking at our general insecurity problem, insecurity on the waterways, insecurity in the nation. In fact, I think tomorrow we should make a whole show, Benga, about how we're starting to see an increased number in the bombings of, naval bases. And it's unfortunate that it feels like every other day there's a clip. I saw a clip of soldiers crying and sort of, talking about how they were ambushed. And it's just a really sad situation. It feels like, again, that we're sitting on a keg of gunpowder. But we'll continue to highlight this, and kudos to Biola Festus, our correspondent, for following up with this story and amplifying the voices of the people in Rivers State. Let's now look at the unending drama within the Nigeria Labour Party. Recently, the factional national chairman of the Labour Party, Julius Abure, threatened to expose former presidential candidate Peter Obi and Governor Alex Otti over 2023 campaign funds that were allegedly mismanaged. The Julius Abure faction has also gone further to call on President Bola Tinubu to rein in the governor of Abia State, Alex Otti, over an alleged threat to the faction. They say they are worried about the call by Governor Otti to the Inspector General of Police to arrest members of the faction. About a month ago, the Supreme Court set aside the judgment of the Court of Appeal in Abuja recognizing Julius Abure as the national chairman of the Labour Party, sacking him as the party chair. Since then, Abure has insisted on remaining in office, purportedly suspending Governor Alex Otti and Mr. Obi. Both men, however, have barely said much on the crisis in the party. And, we're going to be looking into the details of this. We have our lead researcher here, Abdul Latif, is joining us to expand what, the bigger picture might be here. Good morning again. Good to have you again.
Good morning, Abdul Latif.
Thank you, good morning.
The expert lead researcher at News Central. We're proud of the work you do. But let's start with Labour Party crisis. The courts intervene, but they always say the court is the last hope of the common man. Maybe the men in Labour Party are not common, but it doesn't seem to have solved this situation.
Or maybe we should say like
Labour Party.
Or maybe we should say like JAMB said, court proposes, Labour Party disposes.
Because we're looking at a situation where I suspend you, you call for my arrest. It's really messy.
Yeah, so it's really sad that at this time of our national reality that we have an opposition that doesn't seem to be able to back properly, to be able to bite properly, to have impact on the system. Now, but this is not something that is surprising, because ahead of 2023 election, while a lot of people were saying that the Labour Party does not have structures, a lot of people who were supporters of Peter Obi said it doesn't matter what structures, people love him well enough to say that we want him to be president, and therefore that's fine. But without structures, what it means is that when people violate extant rules, there will be no mechanism to sanction them. For instance, we know, for example, that all the rigmarole in PDP today is because some people feel they are above the law. They cannot be sanctioned, they cannot be penalized, they cannot be punished. as against APC. 2 days ago, they suspended a former vice chairman, I think, of Koko local government of Birnin Kebbi, and about 10 others, because basically they felt that, in fact, even an SA to the governor was amongst those that were suspended. It means that unless you have a structure that says, if you violate these rules, you'll be penalized, people will continue to do things that
lead to a culture of impunity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what is happening now, you would see that Peter Obi, for example, and Governor Alex Otti, they are largely a bit, controlled. I mean, they do not talk just anyhow, about the party. But even if you would rather not speak, we expect you to bite. We expect you to give directives. We expect you to activate the mechanisms of, the law, the system within your party to say, if people go against the party in this way, this is what we do. Because, for example, today we do not know, is Nnamdi Papa a member of the Labour Party? Is Abure a member of the Labour Party? I mean, is he actually the chairman or the suspended chairman? Because the courts have ruled. And so when the court ruled, you do not have any other argument. You have
but these individuals you mentioned have their own interpretations.
Yeah, they could have their own interpretation. So that is, it falls back to the mechanism of the, the party. If your party is grounded, certain people can be suspended. It means that you cannot be present in National Working Committee meetings. You cannot be present in NEC meetings. You cannot decide on anything that pertains to the party. In the absence of that, people will hold their own meetings, people will give their own directives, and the party will be in this direction. So it's rudderlessness. And when the party does not inspire hope from within, there is no way to inspire hope amongst the electorate.
I like that you're talking about inspiring hope. We saw a lot of inspiration of hope in the 2023 elections. Millions of people, young people in particular, threw their weight behind the Labour Party, chanting songs about the Labour Party, LUP 73. Yeah. We saw that, and it was something fresh and different from what we typically see in previous elections. With the current happenings and developments in the Labour Party, do you think that trust that the young people have in the Labour Party is being eroded? Do you think they still have the trust in the Labour Party? Do you think they will still be able to wield that measure of influence at the next elections?
I do not see that, unfortunately, and I wish that is what is present at the moment. One, for you to be able to muster the courage and confidence and the groundswell of support, you must exhibit certain, gravitas, of statehood. I should be able to see that, okay, this is my president to be, or these are the people who will form the next cabinet. But without saying that, I mean, I even wish that we have an opposition that can speak against the things that they feel are, wrong with the system, that the masses can connect with.
The individuals in this opposition parties, I mean, Peter Obi speaks consistently.
Yeah, well, he does, but again, how much of that do Nigerians feel? I mean, because, okay, if you say that you are speaking to the concerns and, the conditions of Nigerians, there's an incoherence within your party that Nigerians can. So let me give you an example. If you see that 92 million Nigerians are registered to vote, in an election, and less than 20% have come out to vote, two things are happening. One, the ruling party has been able to mobilize just enough for it to win. Two, Nigerians do not believe in the opposition well enough to say, you know what, we're tired of this mess in the polity, and therefore we're throwing our weight behind you. So if a president won with 9 million votes, that is less than 10% of the total number of people who are registered to vote. What happened to 30 million Nigerians? Angry, unemployed Nigerians. What happened to 50 million Nigerians who will say, you know what, we are tired with the APC, we are tired with the PDP, we are going behind the LP because we've heard you speak consistently and we've heard your party coherently muster the courage to say we are going to do things differently. So when Nigerians have this feeling that your house is in order, they'll be able to throw their weight behind it. It's not about money, it's not about how much you spend, it's not about how much you campaign. It's about seeing that you are different from ABC. You are not APC, you are not PDP, you are different.
Yeah, I was going to say, but the other political parties are still facing those internal squabbles as well. The PDP too is the house divided against itself. Yes. The APC, interestingly, now looks like the most popular kid in the school, but they also have their own internal squabbles.
Yeah, but surprisingly, the APC has been able to manage its own internal crisis. So there will always be crisis. There's no perfect party anyway. There will always be crisis. But your ability to align everybody and say, your desires, your wishes, your hopes, your aspirations, let's converge. Let's have a mid course.
The party's interests should come.
The party's interests, and then, once all of these interests are aligned. I mean, some people jumping into the APC today are not doing so because they feel the manifesto of the APC is better. They just feel, you know what, this is where I will get listened to. This is where my concerns will be addressed. I will not be left, to myself. If they were to stay in the PDP or LP or the other opposition parties, they feel nobody's listening.
Is it about listening or about winning elections for a number of these people?
Most of them is about winning elections. Special vehicles to just get into office regardless. So if they feel that they cannot get that chance to win in the opposition, well, it's either they keep quiet or cause more problems or just jump into the ruling party.
Now, the Senate President, Godswill Akpabio, took a jab at Labour Party's 2023 presidential candidate, Mr. Peter Obi. He said, someone that cannot fix the internal crisis in his party, how do you expect him to be, to tackle Boko Haram problems, for example? How much of blame, how much blame could we apportion to Mr. Obi for Labour Party's internal crisis, and is it in his place to really fix it? I mean,
sometimes
what can he possibly do to remedy the situation?
Sometimes it's difficult to wear the crown. You are trying to see how all the opposing forces, all the disagreeing perspectives are aligned, for the betterment of the party. A lot of people can throw blames at Peter Obi himself. I'm sure he has exhausted internal mechanisms to see how some of these issues can be resolved. There is no way Peter Obi will be happy that the party is in disarray. What again we must go back to is let me give you an example. In Abia State, for example, before the coming of Otti, there was no Labour Party office. You would assume a single office for Labour Party, but that was supposed to be like the stronghold of Labour Party. What it simply means is that go back to the structures. A building cannot exist without a foundation. You can make maybe a caricature, or just make a paper box of a building. It will, with the weather and all of that, it will give way. It is the same way with parties. How rugged, how properly, put together are you to withstand challenges? Because the Nnamdi Usman-led, Labour Party at the moment, we should have heard about, convening all the disagreeing,
they've been having stakeholder meetings.
Yeah, but is Julius Abure and all the other people who are on his side, are they going to be willing to be a part of this?
Can Julius Abure be suspended? Is there an instrument in the party that can allow for Julius Abure and the other ones who have refused to?
They've suspended them via word of mouth.
So it should be official. If they are suspended, it's official. It means that whatever comes from Julius Abure and the gang, in quote, will not be seen as the position of Labour Party.
So is this a hopeless situation? We're 2 years to the next election. Yes. Is there a remedy? Is it possible to fix this crisis in the Labour Party? Because it's been dragging on for too long. And like you said, it's affecting the PR of the Labour Party and also its front runners.
There is a chance. I mean, if the Labour Party looks at, the whole shebang of arguments and focus on winning. And that is why I love Governor Alex Otti. You look at the Southeast, there is no argument. He's the most aggressive in terms of work, deliverables. If you know that your target is to win an election, to lead a country, leave your egos, leave the other issues aside and say, we must win. And if we must win, we must get ABC right. It's the same thing happening to PDP. You see a party where two people are refusing to agree, the party is in disarray, and you are refusing to focus on what matters. Is it about your ego? Is it about your interest? Or about the fact that we must win? And for you to win, you have to leave certain things. You have to compromise certain things and say, these other things can wait, but this is the focus. How do you mobilize 20 million Nigerians and say, we want to dislodge a ruling party and we need this number? How do we muster this number, local government by local government, word by word, aggregate the collective anger of Nigerians and deliver the votes? It's like mathematics. It's like football. If you refuse to plan and work collectively, you can be the best player. You will run 90 minutes. and no single goal. And whatever you play on the field will not be recorded at the end of the game. People will be amused, be entertained, and all of that, but there will be no record of goals. And to make any sense of any match, it has to be by the tally. What is the score at the end of 90 minutes? So you have 20 minutes to election, 20 months to election, you have refused to agree with yourself, you have not called on net meeting, you have not called on disagreeing for parties, you have not suspended the errant members, and you say that you are a party that wants to win.
I mean, we haven't even mentioned Nnamdi Kanu in this conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I don't
know this organization.
Every time I see him, I ask myself, what is this man doing in Labour Party? I always try to, because I want to see how many votes.
He's a fractional chairman.
He's a fractional chairman. How many votes can this guy muster in an election? Because I've not seen in the records, so far, I've not seen anything. Right. So if you have people who you cannot suspend, you cannot penalize, you cannot punish, that's a party that needs to reject certain things.
What you just talked about, people you cannot suspend, penalize, or punish reminds me of the People's Democratic Party.
Again,
and now people say that the People's Democratic Party has not also been able to establish fine lines and boundaries that govern the actions of people within the party. Internal discipline, exactly. But still, coming back to the Labour Party as they're doing their clean sweep, and I don't know if they're really sweeping the house and trying to, organize things within themselves. Is there anything that the Labour Party could have done differently? Right now it's not the best of times. Is there anything that they could have done differently? And I think another question is how did they even get here?
Okay, that's an interesting one. That's an interesting one.
They're victim of their own success.
Yeah. So this is what happened. Where the rain started beating the Labour Party, maybe many, but where I was able to identify was when the national treasurer of the Labour Party was suspended. When she was suspended, she raised certain concerns internally. There was an internal memo. We are done with an election. This and this and this needs to be done. There were spendings that have not been accounted for. In her position as the treasurer of the party, that is a legitimate concern. Instead of addressing this concern, she was suspended. And while she was suspended, some members of the Labour Party who were within the party were grumbling. They were angry, they were not satisfied that this has happened. Even if they could not voice their concerns, it was impacting on the cohesion, on the strength of the party. And refusing to address that meant that people will do anything the way they want it. And even some Nigerians were asking, how much did you get from the election? How much have you accounted for? How much is left with you? Because if we have to invest in this same party in another, in a forthcoming election, we should even say, you know what, we injected this into the system and this is what is left and we must do this or we must do more than we did in the previous election. It's just about accountability. So if we say Labour Party is different from other parties, well, how different?
Very valid question you've asked there. I mean, you've been able to trace back to the Labour Party former treasurer, Ms. Okpara, who, we've had her on this show as well.
Absolutely.
She's been very public about these allegations, and even feel like she was wrongfully suspended. But you believe that that's the beginning of the Labour Party?
That is one of the areas. One of the areas where the party, started getting.
But let's bring in the special advisor to Governor Alex Otti on media and publicity, Ferdinand Ekelma. Good morning, Mr. Ekelma. Thank you very much for joining us on the show this morning. I don't know if you've been able to follow up with the conversations that we're having so far, but I know that you've been very vocal talking about how Julius Abure is the problem of the party. So talk to us now where, with regards to the leadership battle and the leadership structure within the Labour Party, what is going on?
Thank you, my sister, for having me. Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, what is happening is public knowledge. And ordinarily, from the onset, we refrained from discussing Mr. Abure's, Julius Abure, because as far as we are concerned, he was our friend, and maybe still our friend. And even when the issues started, we were very careful, we were very measured to ensure that our, words, our statements are well measured. Unfortunately, immediately the caretaker committee was set up. They began to run amok, began to say all kinds of things that clearly showed that they were out for a fight that would lead anyone, lead no one anywhere. The issue, I must say, is not about Julius Abure. as an individual. It's about a group of persons who have vowed to ensure that the Labour Party is destroyed, because the issues are very clear and simple. You had a tenure of 4 years, which expired. You sought an extension, and there is a document to show to this. And they have intentionally, carefully refused to discuss this aspect of the issue. He had a tenure of 4 years, which expired in 2023. He sought the support of the leadership of the party, stakeholders at all levels, for a 1 year extension, which was granted him. It expired. It was like a consent judgment. A consent judgment. It was signed by some relevant persons. INEC was involved. And this tenure expired in 2024. Instead of him to leave, the man now foisted himself as the national chairman, the name of a convention. And that was why INEC said they weren't going to recognize him. In fact, it was INEC that brought to the attention of Governor Alex Otti so that, we wouldn't see them as fighting us. INEC brought, to the attention of Governor Alex Otti that you are aware of the agreement that was signed and that this man's tenure has expired. Governor Alex Otti got hold of the document and invited Abure to Abia. He came, he sat down with him and said, this is what is happening. I've been communicated to that your tenure has expired. And I've reached out to other leaders of the party, people who were, they said your tenure has expired. Please, I will appeal to you. This is beyond you. This is not about you. Let's sit down, discuss, and see how to ensure that we do not have a problem in the Labour Party. I would have said it was a lie. There was no document and all those things. But Alex Otti showed him the document and he was speechless. But he insisted he would remain the national chairman. Of course, when he attended INEC meeting, that was what led to him being walked out of the meeting. That was how the problem started. What were we supposed to do? What was the leadership of the party, the leaders of the party, what were they supposed to do? That was because Abure was the chairman of NEC. And he wasn't the only member, he wasn't the only person in the NEC. Governor Alex Otti was a member of NEC and a few others. That was how he reached out, because in his absence, having had his tenure expired, he had no locus, he had no business to preside over the affairs of the party as the national chairman, let alone, convening a convention. And the so-called convention itself never followed the processes and laid down both in the constitution of the party and the electoral act. There was no World Congress. Ask him where it happened. And they have never denied it. There was no local government congress. There was no state congress, no zonal congress. And you became a national chairman, courtesy of a convention. That's ridiculous. Okay? Now, when this was challenged, remember he went to court. When this was challenged, he went to court. He got a favorable judgment at the court of High Court, got a favorable judgment at the Court of Appeal, which he was celebrating, which he celebrated, which, formed the basis for him to say, I am the national chairman. Now, the Senate on the Usman-led caretaker committee proceeded to the Supreme Court, and all their prayers were granted. The judgments of the High Court and Appeal Court were nullified. And even after the judgment of the Supreme Court of Nigeria, that the Supreme Court said, we will not go into your internal affairs, does not mean that the Supreme Court does not have the powers to make certain declarations, which they did. They set aside the judgment. If the Supreme Court did not agree with the prayers, they would have declined. Because in the issue of jurisdiction, when the Supreme Court they don't want to get involved at all, so they would have completely declined jurisdiction. And Abuja would have remained the national chairman. So the issue has been resolved. It's not about we versus Abure. It's about people's, penchant for lawlessness in this country. It's about people's desperation to occupy position for their selfish reasons. That's just what is happening in the Labour Party. We have nothing personal, against Abure.
Mr. Koma, the question now is what next? What next for the Labour Party? What's the way forward? Julius Abure, of course, is still maintaining his integrity. There have been accusations against him. He's threatened to expose His Excellency Peter Obi. We've been seeing, different arguments flying here and there. What next is it, and how can the Labour Party, how is the Labour Party planning to get out of this fix?
Thank you, my sister. Well, we sympathize with Nigerians. We sympathize with progressives who are desperate to have a responsible platform and responsible leaders to advance, the interests in a democracy. We are doing the needful, just like we called on the police and INEC to do the needful. Those are the things we should be doing. We can't take laws into our hands. We can't resort to self-help. The Supreme Court judgment is clear. In that case, INEC filed a counter affidavit where they affirmed, where they submitted that Abure's tenure had expired. And the counter affidavit filed by INEC was also upheld, was not set aside, was not dismissed. These are the issues. So what we are doing, is to see how the institutions charged with the responsibility of implementing the judgments of the court, especially the judgment of the Supreme Court, that they will do the needful. INEC being a party in the suit, INEC being on our side, has seen the judgment of the Supreme Court, and we expect INEC to do the needful, which is to recognize the caretaker committee, because the decision they took was in tandem with the provisions of the Electoral Act by all standards. Because INEC argued that the so-called convention did not even meet the guidelines as established stated in the Electoral Act. For example, they first listed Abia as the venue for the so-called convention. INEC sent down the people who will observe the so-called convention. Suddenly, they moved it to Asaba. INEC also sent people to Asaba. Less than 24 hours, they moved it to Nnewi, where it's finally held. Of course, INEC withdrew because that was not in order. That was not in tandem with the provisions of the Electoral Act. These are the facts, some of the facts, which Abure and co. have, carefully, cunningly refused to discuss. It's not as if INEC said it and provided the necessary evidence. Let them show any document that showed this is when we communicated INEC. This was the venue we told them. This was the time we told them it was good. So they know what they are doing. So our own is to appeal on INEC. So now that the Supreme Court has agreed with us and with them that they should respect the judgment of the Supreme Court and do the needful. We can't do otherwise. We can't do anything. But like I stated earlier, we have a choice in Abia here, and that has to be stated, but it's not all about us. But we have a choice here. We cannot do anything if the authorities fail to do the needful. We can take a walk. We are on ground here, by the special grace of God, our people are very happy with us. If they, like the people have said that Alex Otti is a political party, wherever he goes, they will go. So the worst, is to leave the party. And when that happens, we have nothing to lose. And those people, Abure and co, who have already conditioned their mind to sell farms in 2027 and make money for themselves, will find out that they will have nobody, to sell farms to, because there will be nobody in the party. By the time we leave, they won't see anybody there. And that's the fact. Because this was a party that had no office in Abia, for example. No single office anywhere. I challenge them to come and, prove otherwise.
All right.
Governor Alex Otti came, donated an office to them. So they were not on ground. So it's not about the party, the nomenclature, Labour Party. No.
So it's about the individual now. It's not necessarily about the Labour Party.
The Labour Party will be empty.
Right. So it's not necessarily about the Labour Party at this point, but the individuals who are spearheading the success of the party. There's so many other angles that we hope to uncover, but unfortunately we're out of time.
Look forward to bringing you
we
back.
We definitely want to have a second conversation with you, Mr. Ferdinand Ikoma. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
And thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me.
And thank you very much, Ablatif Ahmed, for sharing your insights with us. Thank you.
All right, quite an interesting conversation. We'll continue to follow up with the update in the Labour Party here on Breakfast Central, and you can share your thoughts with us as well. Maybe we should pose a tease and ask if Governor Alex Otti and certain other key principal officers leave the Labour Party, do you think the party will survive? Let us know on X at News Central TV. Now, moving up to our next story regarding JAMB.
Yeah, JAMB has admitted to a major system failure that compromised the integrity of the 2025 UTME examinations. A technical review conducted by the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board has revealed that a critical oversight in server updates coupled with human error affected the performance of students during the 2025 Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination. 379,997 candidates will now have to retake the exam following widespread complaints of technical glitches, unusually low scores, and alleged irregularities. What went wrong? Who is responsible? And what does this mean for the future of standardized testing in Nigeria? Join us to unpack this is MD CEO Dream Height at Global Consultant and Educationist Agba Wilson. Agba, one welcome to you, Mr. Agba, and thanks for joining us on Breakfast Central.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
What are the implications of the JAMB registrar's admission, Professor Ishaq Oloyede, yesterday about system errors for the examination body? What do you make of his press conference?
Oh, well, first of all, I think I want to commend him for admitting the error, coming forth with it, and taking full responsibility. Also, giving information about the remedial steps the body is taking to ensure that the students who participated in the examination do not lose time, and that they are compensated. Compensated here means retaking the exam, not that they are going to give them any material thing or financial thing. But I think it's commendable that a body such highly placed is coming out to say, oh yes, we erred. We listened to your complaint, we reviewed our processes, and we saw an error. We are admitting it, and we are going to do something to remedy it. For me, that is quite commendable.
Okay, but I mean, whilst you're commending it and applauding, the Nigerians who believe that the response is maybe a little too late, because they had said that JAMB was defensive at first, and they're taking cognizance of the fact that, you know, young people, for example, there's reports of a 19-year-old Faith Timleyin who unfortunately took her life over the disappointment of failing the examination, and that if Nigerians did not come out en masse and there wasn't such a public outcry, maybe this accountability would have not, you know, taken place. Do you think that this press conference and this seeming taking of accountability suffices for the damage that has been caused so far?
It may not suffice, but better late than never, and a little something than nothing at all. And I say this from the mindset that it is very rare for institutions like that in Nigeria to own up to their errors. And you would understand that if they wanted, they could keep dragging it, keep denying that it never happened from their end, and that the students fail and all of that. And at the end of the day, they can try to hide it, and nothing much will happen. This is not, for me, a standard for a sane society anyway. But I'm saying, I'm being realistic here. This is the kind of thing we see in the country. About this time last year or so, there was an issue with a young lady who was accused of altering her JAMB result. She did say she didn't alter it. She was sworn by the press, sworn by a lot of people, and at the end of the day, it was concluded that she cheated. She took the fall. Today, we won't know whether she actually cheated or she was made to admit that she cheated, just so that JAMB could save face. So, them coming out to say, okay, we made the error, will make us now to begin to look back. If they made this error this time around, how much error have they made in the past? And what is the security of their system? What is the strength of that system? Is it prone to failure? How often do they review it? Who is in charge? And all of these things. So for me, I'm saying that it's commendable because at least they gave us something. And yes, if the people didn't complain, would they have come out? That is what I always say, even in every other sphere of our political life and social life. You have to come out and complain. If you don't complain, the person who made the error may not know that an error has been made. So coming out to complain is also commendable equally. And I think we should always come out to complain. is an improvement for me. It's an improvement. And it's regrettable to have lost a life before this took place. My condolences and sincere sympathy to the family of the lady. And I think that our leaders can do better. You know, they don't need to be prompted by complaints or anything before you do your system audit. If each time you give out exam results, I expect that a responsible body should actually cross-check all the processes, you know, have some checklists to ensure that the results you are publishing has ticked every item on that checklist before you publish it. And now, I believe they know the far-reaching consequences of publishing a wrong result, that a life has been lost because they published a wrong report, because they didn't do their system audit properly. They didn't maintain their system as they should have done. Because I tried to read the report, I didn't get the details of the error, what caused it, the scale and all of that. I couldn't get all of that. But whatever it is, I believe that when you are using ICT, you need to pay attention. You need regular check. You need proper security for it. They haven't done that. It has cost us a life. I believe they have learned from it, and I believe they will do better next time.
Now, Mr. Akaba, beyond the system glitches, the JAMB registrar also admitted to human error. My question to you is, you said, and rightly so, that JAMB has decided to compensate over 300,000 students who were affected by allowing them to retake this examinations. How much faith do you have in JAMB that when these exams are retaken, we won't have the instance of system glitches and human error like we've witnessed? Is it enough? Do they have enough time to audit their systems and fix things right by the time the students go back to retake their examinations?
Well, that was the first thing that came to mind when I saw the press release. Since they didn't explain much of the technicalities around the problem, we won't be able to tell whether the problem, the scale of the problem is something they can review and amend before the exam is retaken. But if they have given this short a time, I believe it's something they may have identified and sorted out already. We may not know for sure whether the problem will repeat itself and whether it will come to a point of okay, let's just give them marks, let's give them good grades, irrespective of what the system does, so that they can leave us and we'll have time to put it together before next year's exam. That will be bad. What we can do is to, as a public and as media, also shine light on what they are doing between now and when they are going to the exam, so that we can hold them accountable. So that's the much we can do. We cannot tell for certain that they will be able to address the issue, since they didn't tell us the details of the issue. We cannot tell for sure whether it will happen or it will not happen during the next exam. I, for one, have pointed out that JAMB should take a closer look at their system. Even I said this some 2 or 3 years ago, when some student wrote their exam. My niece was part of them that time. They went to the computer center to check for their result. They had a certain result, and then when later they went there, the marks were increased. And then they explained that, they gave one explanation like that I can't really figure out. I would say my niece maybe didn't tell me the truth, but I heard from different other parents and children too. And if she was maybe reducing the mark or something, but the mark increased, she brought back the slip, and the mark increased by about 30 or 50 marks or so. So if these errors keep happening, then we can't trust absolutely that the next exam is going to be free of error. And you did mention human errors too. Human error occur because of the process of recruitment, the process of training, the process of evaluation and monitoring of processes within the system. And sometimes because of the problem we have in the country holistically, the square pegs are not necessarily put in the square holes. certain things get done by connection. And people do some work because it is the only place they get money to keep life going. They are not passionate about it. So only people who are passionate about their job will go the extra mile beyond what they are paid to ensure that there's perfection in what they do. So maybe until we get to a point where we get the right people with the right passion in the right places, we may not be able to say 100% that people will do their best to ensure the best gets out.
All right, and are people right with their calls to the JAMB registrar? They're asking him to step aside, they're asking that he be suspended or that he resigns. They're also criticizing the response of the social media handler who started a tweet by saying, man proposes, God disposes, and then goes on to speak about a technical glitch. He said, man proposes, God disposes. It has been established that a technical glitch affected 157 centers out of the 887 centers in the 2025 UTME. Now, this tweet, many have said, is indicative of a lack of empathy and was done not in utmost good faith. So they're asking that the handler and the registrar both step aside. Is that calling for too much?
Well, I wouldn't say it's too much, right? But then I wouldn't say we should get the registrar to step aside now, because there's a mess and it needs to be cleaned up. It's going to take time for a new person to, understand the seat and the office before cleaning it up. So we should get the registrar on his toe to fix the issue. When the issue is fixed, or at least when this exam issue is fixed, then we can discuss whether he should stay on or not. And then the issue of the social media post. I have also been talking to people generally, and organizations that, even government organizations, that the issue of corporate communication and what you want to call strategic communication, it has changed since the emergence of social media. Before now, I need to go to a radio house before I can talk to a multiple number of people. I need to go to a TV house. I need to go to newspaper. But now, somebody can stay in their small room and post something online. Information travels faster and wider now than it used to. It means, therefore, that the corporate communication arm of every organization should be up and doing. They should be up to date. They should be scanning the news about information concerning them so that they can put clarification out there at all times. More so, people who are put in this department ought to be trained on how to respond to issues. It is not for somebody to sit down and draft it, but it's not your personal post. You have to look at the social perspective, the technical perspective, the political perspective, the diplomatic perspective. All of these things have to be put in place. In politics, they will tell you the optics. You need to look at the optics. A person have died from this mistake, and you are posting casually as if you are just responding to a post made by your friend. It is not enough. So a call for a change of that guard is in order. But beyond change, I am calling that every organization, both government and non-government, should, as a matter of urgency, retrain their corporate communication staff. They should be taught to be able to communicate in a holistic manner, considering the optics and the situation at hand. So JAMB should not take this lightly. JAMB comes to the public almost every time because they have a yearly activity to deliver to the public. They should be at the top of that game. Corporate communication, strategic communication, a robust one, robust team. They should take more training. They should simulate. They should look at all angle and practice, so that when issues like this happen, you don't just put out statements that will anger the public more.
All right, thank you very much, Agaba Wilson Agaba, for joining us this morning. We definitely will be following up with the updates we get regarding the JAMB rescheduling and what the next steps will be for these students. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
All right. We hope that the lessons have been learned. We're not quite out of the rough yet, but we'll continue to bring you updates in this regard. We'll now go on a break. When we come back, we have more stories to look at this morning. Stay with us. Let's now bring you more developments in the ongoing trial of Nnamdi Kanu, the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB. The Federal High Court in Abuja has admitted the death certificate of former presidential aide Ahmed Gulak as evidence against Kanu. The prosecution alleged that Gulak, who served ex-President Goodluck Jonathan, was murdered in Imo State on May 30th, 2021, after Kanu, in a broadcast, ordered his followers to deal with anyone violating his sit-at-home directive. The indigenous people of Biafra has also denied any involvement in the murder of Ahmed Gulak.
The statement issued by IPOB's Media and Publicity Secretary, Comrade Emma Powerful, the group rejected claims linking the Biafra group to Gulak's death. Meanwhile, the Department of State Services has strongly denied claims that Kanu is being held in solitary confinement. What does this mean for the case? We're now joined by legal practitioner Evans Ufeli. Warm welcome to you, Mr. Evans Ufeli. Thanks for joining us for Breakfast Central.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's start with the claim of the DSS refuting Nnamdi Kanu's detention in solitary confinement. How did this even come about, and what does the law say about in what situations do you hold a detainee in solitary confinement?
Well, solitary confinement is meant for hardened criminals, people who are terrorists or who have the tendencies to be very violent, even in detention, that it is a security risk to put them in prison to cohabit with others because they can lose their mind at any time. They can be very violent. They can become a risk to even the prison warders. So they put them in solitary confinement.
So the question is, IPOB has been proscribed as a terrorist organization. So it's the DSS within its rights. If they have admitted
to having kept him in solitary confinement.
To have kept him in solitary confinement.
No, I don't think Nnamdi Kanu is of that posture. Okay. Even though the federal government declared IPOB as a terrorist organization, we know that IPOB were not in that class because we have terrorist organization in Nigeria with the Boko Haram, the ISWAP, the Lakurawas, and the rest of them. We know their modus operandi, and their modus operandi is clearly to exterminate humanity. Okay, IPOB is not that. That's not the objective. They are a secessionist group. Okay, how be it that their agitation sometimes result into violence, but you cannot say that it's a terrorist organization. I mean, when the federal government proscribed them, as at the time they proscribed them, some of the terrorist organizations in Nigeria, the bandits and all that, were not even proscribed. It was when they went to get the Tucano jet that the US said that you cannot take this jet to Nigeria unless you have gone to officially declare those bandits as terrorists before you can even move it to Nigeria, because it is not used against any other organization other than terrorist organization. So you have to do that first. I mean, even as at that time, before that time, the federal government had already proscribed IPOB, which was not even a terrorist organization, in my estimation. But we know the politics played around this, and I don't think it is right to keep Nnamdi Kanu in solitary confinement. You know, he's undergoing trial right now.
Yes.
Okay, so why is he not remanded in prison custody, which is the normal thing to do? Put him in prison. Every inmate.
I mean, they'll say he's a high-profile prisoner and a flight risk because he has jumped bail in the past.
He didn't jump bail. Nnamdi Kanu didn't jump bail. He was on bail in his residence when
there was an attempt on his life.
Army came there to boggle the place, killed his parents.
And they had to.
Yeah, because today we are admitting in evidence now that it was his order that led to the death of Gulag. Now the death certificate has been admitted in evidence. Well, yesterday a lot of people were jumping and said the admission of a document in evidence does not mean you have won or lost the case. It just means that
the person is dead.
The person is dead, and the court have admitted an evidence that is alleged to have been the outcome of an order made by Nnamdi Kanu.
The court hasn't made any pronouncement.
No pronouncement.
But how significant is it? The court's decision to admit this piece of evidence, the video recording that we talked about. I don't know, we haven't talked about that yet, but the video recording and the death certificate of Ahmed Gulag. How significant is it?
It is one thing for a court to admit a piece of evidence. It's another thing to determine the weight that will be placed on it. Now,
or the interpretation.
Yes, majorly, every piece of evidence was not objected by the adverse party, Kanu Agabi and the rest of the legal team of Nnamdi Kanu, Aloy Ejimako and the rest of them, did not, object it, okay? So it went into evidence. Now, the reason, the essence of admissibility is relevance. If the piece of evidence is relevant to the fact in issue, the piece of evidence will be admitted. Now you could have a fact in issue, you could have evidence relevant to the fact in issue. You can have some evidence that are not relevant to the fact in issue, but they are relevant to the relevant facts. So all evidence in that category can be admitted in evidence. But it does not mean that the said evidence now have determined the case. Because I saw the posture in yesterday, so many persons, though not lawyers, okay, who may not, we could forgive them their trespasses because they are not lawyers. We're talking about how that the admission of that evidence alone has sealed the case. No, this is, is a serious allegation of murder we're talking about, okay? And for you to convict a person of murder, there must be a nexus between the defendant and the act itself. Okay, he made an order, according to you, that people should be dealt with. People that refuse to obey the statute order. Okay, you said that was what led to the death. But during cross-examination, because see, what we have now is the defense have not even opened their case.
Right.
What you have is just the prosecution. The prosecution opened the case and they are tendering evidence accordingly. Okay, so and the matter was also stalled. That's because the document that Kanu Agabi applied from the police have not been given.
All right, let's pause on that. We'll come back to talk more about this document. We'll go on a very quick break. And when we return, we'll still be exploring more conversations regarding the latest on Nnamdi Kanu's trial. Stay with us. Welcome to Breakfast Central. We're still joined by Evan Sufelius. We're exploring the latest on the trial of Nnamdi Kanu. Now, before we went on the break, we were speaking about the defense applying for a certain document. Please go ahead.
Yes, the defense team actually applied for a document, from the police of that state, but they've not been able to get this document. And trial could not proceed because of those issues, and they asked for an adjournment. The prosecution objected to the fact that trial should continue because they need to. The practice direction talked about day-to-day trial, so there should be no space. And the judge looking at the issue knew that they've gotten to a point. Justice James Omotosho of the Federal High Court, Abuja, stated that they need to have that adjournment to enable all parties get all documents required for the proceedings to continue. I think it was necessary that adjournment, but if you look at the trial has been accelerated because they've been
unlike before.
Yeah,
under the previous judge.
The previous judge, but now because there's an order for accelerated hearing, okay, they are making a lot of progress. Okay, very soon. The prosecution still have 5 witnesses to call. 5 witnesses. So those 5 witnesses, maybe it will take maybe another 4 or 5 adjournments. Okay, then before the defense will open their case. but the frequency of adjournment, I mean the closeness in the dates we're having, we're going to dispense of this case before the year runs out.
Well, that's exciting. So what are the next steps we're expecting with the case? They've written to the police, the date has been adjourned, so when they come back to court...
They're going to take the other witnesses, I mean the prosecution.
Right.
Because the defense have not opened their cases, the prosecution have opened. So the prosecution will have to bring in everything they have against him. Okay. In the course of doing that, the defense counsel can object some of the evidence. Okay. And then
but does the defense counsel get to cross-examine?
Yes. They will cross-examine them. Each of the witnesses will be cross-examined. The reason for cross-examination is to test the credibility of the evidence, either oral or documentary.
Yeah, but these witnesses have been using anonymous names, so
yeah, there's a need to protect. Yeah. But even under our law, there's a law now before the National Assembly talk about witness protection. Even in civilized democracy, they mask them. Yeah. Sometimes they alter their voice. Okay, so you're not able to get their true voice to protect them. Sometimes they shield them from, because when you, in this kind of, it's a high-profile case. It has a lot to do with regional, treason, so many sentiments, and yes, and the penalty for the case is also way far, capital offense. Capital punishment comes with it. So there's a need to protect every person that should be protected, and there's a need for the court to come to justice. That's the most important thing, and the court is doing that as we speak. The trial is going on well. The witnesses are available. That's the prosecution witness as we hear. So they will continue to give the evidence, and they will be cross-examined. Okay, whatever it is you bring to court, including the evidence of death and everything, will go under the fireworks of cross-examination. Because it is cross-examination that
vice versa. When the defense also brings the witnesses,
when the defense opens their case, they'll call witnesses. Those witnesses will be cross-examined by the prosecution. Okay, so it is after the examination in chief, cross-examination, and if there's any need for re-examination, for clarity of ambiguity and every other thing, after the examination, then the defense will close their case. And once they close their case, the court will adjourn for adoption of final written address. And after final written address, the court will adjourn for judgment.
Typically, how long will judgment take? Is there?
No, you can't really tell how long it will take, especially now. I don't know how many witnesses the defendants have. I don't know how many witnesses, but this prosecution still have 5 witnesses to deal with. People who witnessed whatever will support the case of the prosecution.
And it's one man, the judge, that would determine. You don't have a jury system.
No, you don't have a jury system. It will determine based on the evidence before the court. But the fact that you have 5 witnesses does not mean all the witnesses will be called. They may decide to dispense with some if they have covered the ground as possible.
All right, still going back to the detention situation, we've seen conflicting reports, of course, within Nnamdi Kanu and his lawyers, who right from time have been letting us know that they hadn't been getting access to their client, and now the DSS giving us different reports. Do we have a current position as to his detention situation?
The last one have been cleared. It was a lawyer, Jim Court, that put out that on social media that they did not allow the lawyer to see Nnamdi Kanu. But what actually happened, Kanu and Abure said and explained what happened, that he actually went there before 2 o'clock. He's supposed to go from 2, but went before 2. So they didn't allow him up until 2. And he explained to the court. And then the court had warned that Allah and others who put out things on social media should verify things proper. Not like he was asked not to see Nnamdi Kanu. But as at the time he came, he could not see him that time because they have their own administrative protocols.
Yeah.
But eventually saw Nnamdi Kanu after 2 o'clock.
And the solitary confinement bit of it, do we have clarity in that as well?
Yeah, the solitary confinement, the allegation is that he's in solitary confinement, but the DSS are saying, no, that is not there. I mean, they are not going to take you, who is a visitor, into the detention facility. They will just bring him. So you can't even know whether it's in solitary confinement or it's only Nnamdi Kanu himself that can say he's in solitary confinement.
But if they are saying that he was in solitary confinement, it will be because he's the one that told them.
Yeah, before now, earlier on, it was when he was during the extraordinary rendition.
Yes.
He was actually put in solitary confinement because he said it then. Okay, when the trial was when they were going to court then, when this even
under Justice Inyako.
Yes, yeah. Even when the Supreme Court said then that the extraordinary rendition was irresponsible, that the federal government going to his house to when he was on bail and all that was also an act of irresponsibility. The Supreme Court actually condemned everything they did to him. And then the Supreme Court ordered for the case to start de novo. That's this one now, yes. To start afresh. And that is exactly what is going on. What is going on now is the order of the Supreme Court. And the order also said that there should be accelerated hearing. So you have it's the order of the Supreme Court that this is running on. Yes, this whole case is running on.
All right. Do we expect any sort of response or ongoing or maybe interventions from the international community, especially owing to the fact that he is not just a Nigerian citizen? You know, are we expecting maybe the international community will jump into the conversation?
Well, the position of the international community is not very clear because they have not made public statements to that effect that I have seen. But he has a dual citizenship. I mean, he's a British citizen and he's also a Nigerian citizen. But now, it is alleged that he committed offenses. Okay. Part of their defense was that those offenses were not committed in Nigeria. That you cannot even litigate, you cannot even convict him because he was not in Nigeria when those issues. So they went and amended the charge. Okay, then. Okay, and then the charges have been amended on several occasions. So if you have to convict someone or try someone, it must be an offense that is committed within the territory of the said country. This wasn't. I'm not preempting the court. Of course, we can talk about the case in court. The only thing we cannot do is to preempt the outcome.
Yes.
Nobody can preempt the outcome. But as at the time those offenses were committed, he was not in Nigeria. That is part of their defense. Okay. So we'll see how it goes, how the court will interpret that, and from where he was then, the dual citizenship will not play a role based on the fact of the case. What I mean is that it is Nigerian government that is prosecuting him, not the UK government. Okay, so they are going to prove beyond reasonable doubt, because that's the standard.
And this,
beyond reasonable doubt that what he did was treason, or treasonable felony, whatever it is. And that there's murder to it and all the charges, everything. And the prosecution must prove every of the charge one after the other. Anyone that fails, fails against the prosecution. Okay, so to have him convicted, all the charges will have to be proven
beyond reasonable
doubt. The one that fails will fail against the prosecution.
Before we wrap up, what implications does this have for Nigeria's criminal justice system? Because they say justice delayed is justice denied, and it had to get to the Supreme Court to enforce an accelerated hearing. There are thousands of cases out there that have been dragging for years. Would they set a precedent, or perhaps have an effect on the other cases, so we stop dragging our feet and would it change anything in the
Administration of Criminal Justice Act? Okay, the law we have now, every criminal prosecution, they're supposed to be based on accelerated hearing, because adjournment should not be far. Okay, but what you have that intercept that is the congestion of the courts. Okay, even the congestion also affects this particular case. Okay, the congestion of the courts and the fact that you have so many cases, few judges, few courtrooms. Okay, look at our population.
Are we looking at expanding the courtrooms and judges?
Yeah, expansion is critical. I mean, the federal government is recruiting judges. I think the names of new judges just came out. They need to do more, and they need to build bigger prisons, because before 2009, there were some offenses there were some things that are offenses now that were not offense then. Kidnapping, for example, we didn't have it even in our law books.
Wow.
Terrorism, we didn't have it. We are not that kind of people, okay, before 2009. And some sundry offenses and all that. So, but from that time till now, you have layers, and the National Assembly have to, make laws to address all those crimes. Now they are added to.
So it means the net has been widened.
But the prisons are still the same. How many prisons have been built between 2009 till now? I don't think you have any significant. And that is why it got to a point when Aregbesola was the Minister for Interior, he called on the state governments to come and take those inmates that committed state offenses, to come and feed them, to contribute to feeding them, that the federal government cannot be feeding inmates that committed federal offenses and they are not in prison. And then because we don't have state prisons, because this is managed by the exclusive list, it's in the exclusive list, detention and all that. Now, he made that assertion to the fact that the state should contribute. That is like hitting on federalism now, because since you
it's a logical conversation.
It's logical. It's logical because the federal government backs 66 items into the exclusive list, and they have no competence on one. So at the end of the day,
let others you privatize it.
Yes, because in the US it's privatized. It's private business. Build the facilities, put everything, meet specification, then each inmate that you take, just like we have the JAMB centers. The centers don't belong to JAMB. They're individuals, investors. And as at that time, you pay 7 naira per candidate. So they could do that. Inmates, you pay a certain kind of money before you do that. So the only way for us to have good prison system is for us to have either privatize it or let the state handle it and let it be properly handled.
Right. Thank you so much for joining us this morning on Breakfast Central. We'll continue to see where this story leads. And I'm sure that it's formed a major cause of discourse amongst lawyers, arguments back and forth.
We are following the case. It's a high-profile case. We have to follow. We also develop our jurisprudence. We are getting precedents from saying.
Okay. Absolutely. All right, we'll see how things eventually turn out, and we'll bring you more updates in that regard. But let's now move to South Africa. But we're going to break, and when we come back, we'll move to South Africa.
Welcome back to Breakfast Central. The United States recently accepted 59 white South Africans under a special refugee program. The Trump administration claims these individuals face racial discrimination and violence in South Africa. Critics argue that the decision is racially selective, as the United States has halted refugee admissions from war-torn regions like Afghanistan and Sudan. Now, join us this morning to give us insight on this development is Kali Creel, CEO of AfriForum. A warm welcome to you, sir, and thank you for joining us on Breakfast Central.
Yes, good morning to you, sir. It's great speaking to you.
Now, Mr. Creel, you're part of those that travel to the United States to advocate for white South Africans, that they are being killed, especially white farmers, which the United States president has responded to by giving white Afrikaners refugee status and claiming there's a genocide against white farmers in South Africa. Can you tell us what's happening in South Africa in this regard? And is there really a genocide against white farmers in your country?
Well, let me start off by saying, unfortunately, South Africa is a very violent country, and we are not winning the fight against the high murder rate that we are seeing in the country. But there are two categories of crime or murders, only two, where people are calling for such murders to be committed. The one is with regard to xenophobia. We know, if you look at the social media, there's a high intolerance towards people from the rest of Africa coming to South Africa, and you have people then actually going ahead and stirring up emotions in that regard. And that's the same thing that is happening with regard to not only farmers, but also Afrikaners as a cultural community. You have some somebody like Julius Malema calling for the killing of Afrikaners. And of course, we then tried to get the South African Constitution and court to protect us. The Constitutional Court did not protect us. We asked the President of South Africa to condemn these chants that call for violence against Afrikaners. He refused to do so. And I think from a perspective in America, if they see visuals of people calling for the killing of Afrikaners, of course, they would be worried. And then the situation is made worse by the fact that what also makes farm murders a bit different is that there's a high number of those murders that are committed by using torture, using a drill, drilling a hole into an old lady's feet, using hot irons, using boiling water, and a number of horrific methods. And within that context, I think there's a worry. Of course, we never say there aren't any other murders in the country. There's a lot of other murders. But what we've seen, government prioritizes some kind of violence, for instance, violence against women and children. The fight against that is a priority crime. We are in favor of that because that's a scourge that needs to be eradicated. The government has a priority crime for gang violence in the country, which is good because there's a scourge of gang violence, but they refuse to declare also farm murders a priority crime. And I think it's within that context that many Afrikaners are not feeling safe and that they have now taken up the offer from the US.
But these crimes are not targeted at Afrikaners alone. They're targeted that South Africa has a crime problem. So why do you make it an Afrikaner problem?
Well, I think especially because that's the murders of Afrikaners, as I've said, is only one of two categories of crimes that there are people openly calling for that crime. Nobody is saying kill the gangster or chanting kill the black farmer. It's being chanted kill the Boers. And Boers is, of course, a term used for Afrikaners. So I think that is what makes this exceptional. As I've mentioned, the tortures that we don't see on a large scale in terms of other crimes. And as I've said, in terms of other crimes, some of them are declared a priority crime. But there's a refusal, not only a refusal to do so. You had President Ramaphosa going to New York a few years back and saying there's no such a thing as farm murders in South Africa. So it's in denialism. We're not asking special treatment. It's just saying here's an issue that needs to be addressed. Instead of going into denialism, let's say how can we solve it? Because we want to bring up our children here in Africa. Afrikaners have become Africans. You know, Dutch, German, and French people came here in the 1600s, and they merged and became a new people that named themselves after the continent, Afrikaners. We have turned our back then on Europe to Africa. And for me, I'm not a Frenchman, I'm not a Dutchman, I'm not a German. I'm from Africa, and we want a solution here in Africa. And what we just need for all of us is to say, hey, how do we solve this? But we've seen the ANC not acting against xenophobia. We've seen the ANC not acting against this kind of violence we are seeing. And then the only option is to say, let's put pressure on the South African government and the ANC leadership. And I think that is what the US is doing at the moment. Hopefully it would force the ANC now to make sure that we address these issues seriously.
All right. In your championing, that Afrikaners are under an existential threat, the many who believe that AfriForum's actions have undesirably influenced international relations or the perception of the country and has exacerbated tensions within South Africa and as well, in the US. How do you respond to those who say that what you've done has brought more tension than it has brought relief?
Yes, no, I think that is a political strategy used by the ANC leaders because they don't want to take responsibility for the negative consequences of their own policies and actions, and now they have to try and find a scapegoat. When President Trump sent out his first tweet, and that was on the 2nd of February this year, at that stage, been to the US for 7 years. And the first thing the ANC said, no, it's not us, it's AfriForum. So there has been a coordinated campaign to make AfriForum the scapegoat. And people say misinformation being propagated by AfriForum. And as soon as you ask them what misinformation, and sometimes the media then took a bite of the cherry and published what they said the misinformation was, and we took them to the press ombudsman in South Africa, and we already had news outlets such as Newsroom Television, Daily Maverick, News 24, Mail and Guardian, Sunday World, all had to apologize to AfriForum because it's false. They put a narrative in our mouths, something we never said. We are quite open with what we said. We even published our memorandum that we handed to the US. It's open for all to see. And that memorandum is factual. If anybody says it's misinformation, they must say which points do they regard as misinformation, and then we address those. The problem we have now is a problem that was caused over many years by the ANC leaders that have started alienating the international community, also other countries in Africa. And now we are reaping the bitter fruits of that irresponsible behavior.
Now, President Ramaphosa has described those that took up the offer to migrate to the United States on this refugee status as cowards. President Ramaphosa is going to be in the United States next week to visit Donald Trump. My question to you is this not making light of serious refugees that have been fleeing war-torn countries, the people in Gaza, the people in Sudan, for example, that have not been given this sort of privilege? Is the US giving this to Afrikaners just because of the color of their skin? Why haven't you personally, as a CEO of AfriForum, if you say you're fleeing a genocide in South Africa, why have you not taken up this offer to relocate to the US yourself?
Yes, I think it's important to say that part of what we are doing, why we are fighting so hard against what is wrong in this country, is because we see ourselves as Afrikaners that can only survive as a cultural community in Africa. We cannot say, well, we are targeted as Afrikaners and then go and settle elsewhere and then be assimilated, because that would mean the end of Afrikaners. We respect, however, that there are people that would want to take that route, but that's a solution for individuals, not for the people, like the Afrikaner people in this country. Then with regard to other refugees, of course, I have sympathy with all people that are being persecuted. I think what in this case also plays a role is that the US played a major role in the settlement of 1994, making sure that the apartheid system, which was immoral and unjustifiable, was exchanged for a new dispensation. And as part of that spirit, it was said that Afrikaners would not govern because as a minority you can't, but that there would be checks and balances for Afrikaners to survive as a cultural community within the new dispensation. And now that has gone wrong. The ANC does not stick to that agreement. And I think there is then an obligation on the US as the people that brokered that agreement to make sure that that agreement is upheld. If one party, in this case, the ANC, does not stick to the spirit of that agreement.
All right, Kali Kriel, CEO of AfriForum, thank you for your time with us this morning. We'll continue to track the updates regarding this offer and how the people in South Africa are receptive toward it. To have a wonderful day.
Thank you. The best for you as well. Thank you for speaking to me.
Thank you. And let's now head back here into the studio to look at what the front pages of the newspapers have for us. We have with us the head strategy and public affairs at Nairametrics, Wade Ahimie. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Good morning, Olive. Good morning, Benya.
Morning.
Any brief thoughts before we go into the paper about the conversation we just had? They say that the white South Africans are facing genocide in South Africa. Donald Trump has opened the doors for them. 49 people have accepted the offer so far. The CEO of AfriForum is championing this conversation, and the people in South Africa are
and
black.
Even Donald Trump is almost regretting it. He said he thought they were skilled farmers, and one of the guys that was interviewed said he has never touched a cow in his life except in his zoo on a Tinder date. So we have another situation in our hands.
Well, when you have someone like Elon Musk pushing that kind of agenda, then I think, in my own opinion, the first thing we need to do is go back to the history of the Musk family, which is filled with a lot of racism. Oh, a lot of people, you're just hearing it for the first time. I'm right, exactly. The father, the mother. So when you understand these things, and it's important we
has advice.
Let me excuse me. So you need to understand that, and so you need to understand why he's pushing that agenda. Are you with me?
All right.
South African white farmers are probably some of the most successful farmers in South Africa. They have large farms, they run the mines, they run the farms. Are you with me? So for you to say that there's genocide, without them, really, Ramaphosa will have to struggle, especially when it comes to the business side or the economic side of South Africa. And I don't think he would let that happen. So, but when Elon Musk, whose family has racist tendencies, start to push an agenda of an all-white agenda, then you understand where it's coming from.
I've seen a report here that says statistics provided by AfriForum and the Transvaal Agricultural Union, a group sympathetic to white farmers as well, show that the total number of farmers across all races killed every year number up about 60 in a country where they see 19,000 murders annually. So how this is a big story? These are some of the reasons why they keep flagging it.
I've told you the background of how it came to be. Elon Musk said something to President Trump, and boom, he went viral. Like, oh, white farmers are being killed in South Africa. Excuse me? Oh, like you said, he has advisors. Is it that they don't speak to him? But of course, let's leave that. I don't want to go into the American space. Let's talk about Nigeria.
Let's talk about Nigeria, exactly. Let's start with the Punch newspaper. JAMB boss weeps as human error forces Lagos Southeast receipts. 206,610 candidates affected in Lagos, 173,387 in Southeast. JAMB WAEC needs to avoid timetable clash. I mean, they've also interestingly started bringing a tribal coloration to this issue with JAMB, which I have been seeing online. People who are wondering, why did this affect the Southeast? I'm thinking, but it also affected Lagos as well. But they've made it they are trying to put some elements of tribal colorations, but let's not focus on that.
Pay them any attention.
Yeah, let's talk about the apology by the registrar of JAMB.
Well, the apology is fine. Are you with me? But I think I've seen online also people say, "Oh, he's such an honorable man, very honorable when he was crying." XYZ. This happened under your watch. Yes, I agree. You need to apologize, but I think you should also do. My own opinion. This is my opinion. My own opinion, I think the other thing you need to do to just show that level of integrity that everybody has said you have is to resign, because at the end of the day, these things were being justified by the educational system in Nigeria of why so many people failed. That was because of the anti-cheating devices that had been put in the system. According to news out there, someone committed suicide, young Nigerian committed suicide when he or she believes that maybe he or she did well in in that exam. So it just is, yeah, that's tragic. So for me, yes, he's apologized on behalf of JAMB. He should
taking responsibility as well.
Yeah, so the other thing for taking responsibility is to tell yourself that this thing happened, it affected almost 400,000 Nigerians. Then I resign, let someone else come and do the next part of it, which is the thing that should be done. That's my opinion. I don't think he will do that. But the fact remains that when we push this narrative of, it's because of people cheats in exams, that's why, you know, all this happens.
And they're distracted on TikTok.
Rather than when people complain, and like I always tell people who have brands and those who manage risk, the first thing when you get a complaint is to acknowledge the fact that that complaint has come in. Rather, we were deflecting it when parents were complaining, students were complaining. It was being deflected using the statements, oh, no, it was the anti-cheat device. Rather, take it in, oh yes, we've heard your complaint and we will look into it. While looking into it, they were busy deflecting the issues and trying to blame poor 400,000 students who are now going to retake an exam, which they say is this weekend, between May 16 and 19. You give an announcement, you come to apologize yesterday, and you say, oh, the exam is going to happen. These are people who have been destroyed for the last 2 weeks.
You didn't even give them time to emotionally recover from this.
That's my point.
People who even have to make a commute to the center where they see
oh, they will give them a call. Someone says, oh, pay their transport.
They will contact.
I don't understand. So you don't give them some time to even come back and realize that, okay, so we need to write and we need to rewrite this exam. Oh, please spare me. It just leaves to be desired those who run our educational system in Nigeria.
Now let's take a look at the front page of the Punch newspaper. There's the headline picture there shows the Inspector General of the Nigerian Police, Mr. Kayode Egbetokun, at the World Police Summit in the UAE, Dubai, and I mean, it's nice for him to go and fraternize and learn one or two things about global best police practices. The reason I'm doing this is because there's a YouTube, there are two YouTubers, Cotton Snow, middle-aged Americans. They took a road trip from Ghana, from beyond Ghana, all the way through, they're heading towards Cameroon. And I've been on that road before. I've taken a road trip to Ghana in the last 2 years, and I can tell you the situation hasn't changed. This is the current situation from last week. From once you get into the Nigerian border, they drove all the way to Anambra State, and it was endless. I mean, you feel for them. Even watching this thing on YouTube is exhausting. There are checkpoints. We complain about numbers of Nigerian police force, that we don't have enough numbers. We have, I think the Nigerian police force has serious numbers, because every 50 meters there's a checkpoint after checkpoint, all the way from the Seme border to Anambra State. It's a nightmare for motorists. Some of those roads are in the worst state. I don't think our leaders, the people in charge, just fly from point A to point B. I don't think they know how much of a problem and embarrassment this is to the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Okay, so what are you advising? Maybe the Inspector General of Police should take a tour of that road.
All the members, all the 360 members of the House of Reps, 109 senators should be forced to take a trip from Lagos to Anambra and see what ordinary Nigerians are going through.
When they are blowing the siren in front of them, of course the roads will be free.
What does this say about us as a country? It's highly embarrassing, and people are going through a lot. And not just, they're not there to provide security all the time. You need to see the number of times money is exchanged.
Well, that's a different topic. But they will tell you that the state of insecurity in Nigeria. Are you with me? So you don't want people infiltrating into the country without the right documentation and all. Not that our borders are very protected. But the fact remains this, where, and I'll use this analogy, where the ostrich who buries its head, are you with me, running away from the hunter and leaves the biggest part of his body, the ass. That's the story generally of what happens with the number of all these things. Why? Because we talk about technology, high tech, AI, this, and we bring it back just to JAMB, and we bring it back to 2023 elections. Are you with me? Oh, there was a technical glitch. For the 2023 elections, nobody has been
Would
able
they come
to
and apologize?
No. Nobody has been able to explain to us
what the glitch
is. But at least JAMB has come out. So maybe that's a step forward. Someone on social media said maybe we should now move in for at least doing the investigation, finding out what was wrong, and then make him the INEC chairman. So maybe we'll have more credible elections. But that's the joke on the side. But the reality of it is that it's unfortunate that a number of all these people passed through a system in Nigeria that developed them, gave them an education. Are you with me? Took them to where they are, and all of a sudden you want to destroy. You've just destroyed all of them. I'm a product of Nigeria. When I say that, people always like, but I'm a product of Nigeria, and I have no regrets about it. I can never regret it. There's nothing I am that I'm not Nigerian. So why is it that you just don't want things to work?
Exactly. Where did we get this culture of not being excellent and impunity?
It's really.
I mean, you're a product. I'm a product of Nigeria.
So are you saying that it was a crime? Are you with me? For those who created those systems that brought us, and I'm talking about my generation, and when I say my generation, I'm talking about those. Sometimes when I say Nigerians are those who were born in the 60s, but there are a lot of them who are part and parcel of this destruction. And when they say those things, it's like they didn't grow up in this country. I've had someone tell me, no, because I went to school abroad, I didn't go anywhere. There's no qualification I have outside Nigeria, and I can sit anywhere in the world. But the fact remains that we have just decided to disintegrate the system, and we're clapping for
highly
ourselves.
Dysfunctional. But I mean,
clapping for ourselves.
we could talk about the ills
and it's
all
not like,
day, all day long.
Like you said, and it's not like there's no corruption in other parts of the world. But how did it just become about me in a country that I grew up that was about community? And those are the reflections that you see, whether it's in the checkpoints, are you with me? Whether it's in someone trying to tell you that, oh, it was an anti-cheating system. People have always cheated in exams for as long as I can remember, whether it's WAEC, it's JAMB, or it's common entrance. And when you get caught, you know what it means. Yeah. As an adult, it's 21. There is a law. 21 years imprisonment for examination malpractice. Oh, you are the lawyer. Didn't you say it when you were in law school or when you went through?
We as lawyers, we don't get.
Oh, okay, those things are not there. You do commercial and politics.
No, we are not involved in.
Let's go on.
Examination malpractice.
That's not the kind of law you want.
We're trained to do better. We leave that for the officials.
Oh, my learned colleagues.
No, your learned friends.
No, my learned.
You are not a colleague.
Okay, my learned friends.
You are not learned Nigerian.
My colleague. Yes, my colleague. Let's talk about our learned superiors.
Let's talk about something that feels like we're sitting on a ticking time bomb. And I can see here Tinubu on the front page of Nigerian Tribune, top right corner. We see Tinubu approves establishment of forest guards. Guards reclaim forest from terrorist and criminal gangs. Now, whilst we talk about the fight against insecurity, I want to mirror this vis-a-vis another headline, which is not a headline we have here. But troops record 7 attacks on military bases, eliminate 22 wanted terror leaders. Yesterday or the day before, we took a story about a member of the legislative member who was raising this alarm that we're actually sitting on the ticking time bomb. But I'm going to run you through the timeline. The paper, the leadership reports that the Nigerian military has recorded 7 terror attacks on its bases in 2025, despite claimed successes against terrorists and bandits. The defense headquarters in 2024 declared 106 terrorists and bandit leaders wanted, with a vow to eliminate them from the battlefield. Now, this year alone, we've had several reports in that regard, and you know how much ammunition. I think the fear is the fact that they are fighting with sophisticated weaponry. Yeah. They are attacking these bases, these military bases. They are cutting away their ammunition, and they're killing our officers, people who have volunteered to fight for the country. And I don't know if we have as much urgency about it as we should have.
I don't think we do. And I don't think we've had that in the last 10 years. But unfortunately, it's no longer a front burner issue. Do you get? Why? I don't know. It was last week we talked about it, that the media is part of the people by putting it on the front page. Yeah, we did talk about it last week.
Yes, when they said we should stop talking because it's a mind game.
Yeah.
In fact, let me run you through this timeline as quickly as I can.
But we say you should talk about
credit.
Yeah. So, but
amplifying.
No. But when you see the thing about this is this, and this is one thing I always tell my fellow analysts, where the Nigerian security system has done well, always give them that credit and acknowledge the fight that they are having against.
They're putting up a good fight.
Yes, and we must say that, and we continually say that.
Right.
But we should never stop saying the fact that there are terrible people who they are fighting against. And some of the things that they do, which is part of the things you just said, is attack bases so that they can steal weapons and weapons.
Let me run you through the attacks that we've had, maybe some of the attacks. March 25th, 2025, Boko Haram terrorists attacked a military location in Wadiroko near Sabongiri in Dambwa local government area of Borno State, killing at least 4 soldiers and unspecified numbers wounded in the action. That's one. Then, the day before, March 24th, they attacked Mugo military formation in Borno State, killing at least 20 Cameroonian troops, carting away weapons and burning down the base. On May 3rd, 2025, 4 soldiers were reportedly killed, weapons carted away when insurgents attacked the 27th Task Force Brigade Bunigari in Yobe State.
Okay,
if you start with the timeline.
Let's stop.
The worry is, what happens, first of all, these people who are losing their lives, and there are a plethora of things that come to mind.
Mm-hmm.
How, on the 15th of January every month, we're doing Armed Forces Remembrance Day. Do we have enough to say thank you to these people who constantly put their lives on the line? Their family members, are they properly catered to? Do they have life insurance? When something happens to them,
is 3,000 naira a day.
Exactly.
It was only just increased to 3,000.
When these people who, in most cases, are the breadwinners of their family, when they die, what happens to their families? Then this equipment that they are cutting away, what is going to become of us in the near future?
Like we continually said about security, and I'm not a security expert, is a multiple-pronged approach that needs to happen. And it needs to happen because, why? If you don't deal with the welfare of those who are fighting these wars, then you have a problem. Do you get? If you don't also deal with the economic situation of the Nigerian people, because poverty and hunger many times drives you into a number of all these things that you find people going into. There's some going there willingly. But those are the things. The idle mind is the devil's workshop. The poor man wants to survive, and so on and so forth. So economically, we have that challenge. People can't feed people, and then you find someone who gives you food, gives you breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So why can't you now just ensure that we do the right things? The monies that are meant to go into these places, why don't they go in there? We spend so much money on campaigns and all, and we find out that civil servants are owed salaries, security operatives are owed salaries. You don't increase their salaries, and when we talk about justice systems, the judges need to increase and I've always said the justice system ends in the judiciary. Correct me if I'm wrong. It starts with the security architecture. That's where the justice system starts from, the security architecture. And if we don't build that security architecture, that's why every time you go, you carry cases to court.
Because there's a failure somewhere.
Exactly, because you haven't done the right investigations, you haven't put the right security architecture and systems in place. Those who are going to investigate, they don't even have the resources to move from one point to the other.
Right.
So at the end of the day, there is a lot that needs to be done, and let's stop paying lip service to it. They inaugurate forest guards. We like uniforms in Nigeria. Somebody just wants to, I have a uniform so I can be the next, in quote, what's it called? Like Yoruba,
you don't really have faith in the ability of the forest guards to bring some sort of respite?
See, we have the FCC, we have FMIU in the police, similar roles.
So it's not about creating more rules, but finding a way to make the ones that are
well, thank God you've explained it better than I can.
Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Always a delight to have you.
Always great to be in the studio.
Always great to have you. We'll now go to what Nigerians are saying. We're going to be taking public reaction to JAMB's statements, their public apology, as well as the most recent statement by the handler saying, man proposes,
God disposes. My words.
Welcome to what Nigerians are saying. Now, the spotlight is on JAMB. They've been in the news, but not for the best reasons. First of all, it was the very poor performance of students at the 2025 UTME. The reactions were pouring out. You could see students, parents sharing their disapproval and the rejection of the results that they were given by JAMB. At the last What Nigerians Are Saying segment, I took videos of a young girl who shared her experience talking about the exams she took the previous year and how she did much better the previous year and was rather surprised that the results and the scores that JAMB had given her, rejecting the results, talking about the plethora of irregularities that had been expressed by different parents, students, and the fact that the CEO of Educare, Alex Otti, then championed the cause to ask for JAMB to represent the mark sheet so that students can see what their scores are, get a chance to see where they made the mistake, because the multiple allegations of glitches in the system could not just be thrown behind the carpet. Now, JAMB's reaction and response is what is being spotlighted in today's conversation. JAMB has been accused of being insensitive, particularly the handler of JAMB HQ. In response to this, Professor Ishak had given a press release or a media address where he at some point broke down in tears, saying that he takes responsibility for what happened. However, what Professor Ishak was saying and what JAMB was tweeting seemed like two different emotions, two different reactions. So first, let's show you the tweets that JAMB put out. JAMB had put out, we propose, man proposes, God disposes. It has been established that a technical glitch affected 157 centers out of the 887 centers in the 2025 UTME. This was basically responsible for the general low performance of the candidates scheduled to sit the examination in those centers. Now, there was another tweet. It said, as such, all the affected candidates will be contacted to reprint their examination slips towards retaking their examination starting from the 16th May 2025. Let's go back to that first tweet. Now, this first tweet, man proposes, God disposes. Make it make sense. This tweet has garnered over 5.1, actually at my last check, it was 5.1 million views. And the criticism is that the handler or the handle hasn't tweeted first in a way that should, a body of such repute should be able to communicate. It's a very far cry from the emotion that was expressed by Professor Ishak. Unfortunately, Nigerians are not taking this lightly. They are asking for the handler to be fired. They do not appreciate this. And I'm going to take the reactions of a number of Nigerians to these tweets. And this particular line, man proposes, God disposes. God, innocent God, brought into the malfunction of man, because people did not do what they were meant to do. Their system and their structure have collapsed. And again, they drag God into this. Let's take the reactions of Nigerians straight away, and then I'll come back. I am Eriolua says, when you spiritualize everything, it deflects accountability. God embodies excellence, not incompetence. This post should have expressed genuine remorse for the emotional and financial harm caused to candidates with an unreserved apology. Instead, it frames the situation as a miraculous intervention, masking your shortcomings. This is sophisticated nonsense, and it's unacceptable. And there are more reactions to this as well. We have another tweet, and in that one, Wemimo Adewuni is spitting fire. She says, I need to know who this handler is. And then she's saying and suggesting that his brain is in a knot. She says, man propose what? Both you and the JAMB registrar must resign or be sacked. Must in capital letters. She's not mincing words in this regard. You can feel the anger and the emotions from this tweet, but she's not the only one who's upset about this. Uncle Ayo says, an institutional disaster where heads are supposed to roll. Offices sacked and resignations tendered, as usual, have silhouetted behind God. Overtly religious societies are normally irresponsible societies. A girl committed suicide because of your ineptitude. Whose head is rolling? Bear in mind that we received reports that a young girl, Faith Timley, a 19-year-old young girl, because of this so-called system where man proposed and God disposed, and has gotten a wrong result, has taken her life. And this is what we get. More reactions to this. Away from Uncle Ayo, Mr. Macaroni says, I still can't believe this level of incompetence and irresponsibility laced with total lack of regard for all those affected. This can only happen in a country where there are no consequences for actions. We as a people have become so comfortable with accepting rubbish, he says. But more reactions after this. We have another tweet from Sub-Pharmacist who said, I had to check whether this was a parody account. I was shocked when I discovered it wasn't. Yeah, I saw a number of reactions like this as well. Many people thinking it was a parody account. Daniel Rega says, man proposes, God disposes. This phrase isn't used for a situation like this. And it's also a very disrespectful way to address a serious problem that has affected thousands of people. As much as this was a reported glitch, the fact that it affected only Lagos and the Southeast raises questions. While JAMB intends to take the responsibility, it doesn't change what happened or undo the pain and trauma it has caused the affected families. That's what Daniel Rega said about this. But let's move on to still take other reactions to this. Okay, this will be our final reaction. Unfortunately, we can't take more. And I think this is not the first time that we've seen criticism about how JAMB responds. Just in the midst of all of this, somebody had said something to JAMB or tweeted something saying, if my score is not up to 200, thunder or fire or something in that regard. And JAMB HQ responded saying, mind your language. It's not your personal handle. Communication is holistic. It's not just about, on your personal handles, you can do whatever it is that you want to do. But I think that it's important that people recognize that training is needed. It's why people hire speech writers. It's why public office holders have people who write their speeches, because you cannot come and express your own personal sentiment. You're not there in your capacity. You're there in the capacity of the organization that you represent. But they're asking that the JAMB HQ handler be relieved of his duties. Benga, let's get your thoughts.
You're absolutely spot on, and the tweets are spot on. We need to learn. It's so sad that, one of the reasons why this sort of things happen is because people who are not qualified are there, or they got to the job based on one connection or the other. Because how would you be a handler of such a national organization and you be tweeting devoid of empathy in such a casual way? It doesn't reflect well on the organization's reputation, and there should be consequences and actions. And I hope JAMB has learned its lesson, because this is, quite frankly, a national embarrassment.
It is a national embarrassment, and what will be imperative is an apology, an official apology from the handle of JAMB. Maybe this time not from the handler. There should be a statement put together saying we apologize for the insensitivity of our tweets or the manner in which it was communicated. Absolutely. And then let us know that this will not happen again. And I'm hoping that this is some sort of a measure of warning to handlers of official accounts. Like we said, on your personal handle, on your personal page, do whatever you want. On an official page, you have to be extra careful. Don't share your thoughts and your personal sentiment in that official page, because it then might become an official embarrassment. Remember what happened with the Ministry of Interior's handle some weeks back, where they posted X-rated content? That was also a national embarrassment. We don't want that. But that's all we have this morning on what Nigerians are saying. We'll continue to follow up with JAMB as we get more updates regarding how this matter is being handled. But we will be connecting with the Joe, yes, I believe.
And I'm sure a lot of you have been wondering, where's the third man on this set? Well, here he is. Joe Hansen is standing by to give us updates on News Central Town Hall series. Is reaching us all the way from the Garden City, Port Harcourt. Good morning, Joe. Wow, looking all fashionable. Wow. This morning. So this is where you left us, right?
To go and eat a little bit of bole and fish for the road. Is there any show in your face? You're looking fresh and rested.
I mean, thank you. I mean, Port Harcourt is a beautiful place to be. Talk about River State, and it feels really good to be here. And thank you so much for highlighting the issues with JAMB. But away from JAMB, we're here for the town hall. We're going to be looking at a very critical situation that's happening in River State. I'm sure Nigerians are aware of what happened on March 18, 2025, when the president declared a state of emergency on River State. Ever since then, it's been back and forth. Civil society organizations, stakeholders, traditional rulers, even the people of Rivers have been talking, and we have thought it through as a station that takes the first step to lead by ensuring that we gather everybody together for a town hall like we usually do, part of the town hall series. And that's exactly what we're going to do today. It started at exactly between 10:30 and 11 a.m. We would kick off here live at the Grace Place. That's the venue, and it's open to all who would love to attend. But most importantly, those who would love to attend can watch us live. It's been a special invitation, so people will be gathered here today to listen attentively. We'll be sharing thoughts on one. We'll be looking at the impact the state of emergency has had on the people of Rivers. We'll also be looking at the way forward. And not forgetting to, we would have a good number of persons, especially from the government. A special invitation was sent to the sole administrator. Hopefully he would send a representative that would be here. We'll also have people from different parts of the community. Talk about stakeholders who will be seated here to speak, to share their thoughts, and every single thing that would be said here coincidentally will also be assured to send to the sole administrator, possibly those in government, so they can also take a look at what Nigerians feel.
Thank you very much for bringing us update as to what to expect. Are we limiting it to the impact of the sole administrator, the impact of the suspension of the governor, or are we expanding the conversations? Because much earlier, Biola Festus brought us the report about sea piracy and insecurity on the seaways. Is this an opportunity for the people of Rivers State to vent about every and anything that is bothering them?
Yes, this is a platform. This is where they can talk. This is where they can air their views. And this is where we can have a cross-examination of what the situation truly is. Don't forget that the suspension is for 6 months. So May 29 is also a very important day in the calendar of Nigeria's history. So what will happen prior to May 29th? Will democracy be upheld? Are we going to look at democracy back again in Rivers State? Because a lot have said that it is undemocratic for such to happen in Rivers State. Some have cited what took place in 2013 during the then President Goodluck Jonathan Ebele's administration, where he had also suspended 3 northern states, Bayelsa, and Borno, not forgetting to Adamawa and of course Yobe. But then again, these conversations will be held here, and I must tell you that is one you shouldn't miss, because the guests are already coming in. We also have important personalities who will be seated here to dissect the issues and talk about the way forward. Hopefully, I'm sure that every single Nigerian will be able to tune in and also benefit from what's happening here in Rivers State.
All right, thank you very much, Joe Hansen, for joining us. You see those 4 ladies who are on the banner you are standing in front of? We need to head out of the studio so that they can take over from here, because the Jasiri ladies are already here. We'll see you around.
Joe, they loaned you. They should remember to bring you back soon. We miss you. I will love you.
Bring us Bolly and Fish. We're coming back.
Bring Joe back. Hashtag bring Joe back.
Take care of yourself, Joe. We'll see you soon. All right, that's all that we have this morning on Breakfast Central. We need to head out. The Jasiri crew are in the studio. I'll be taking over from where we've stopped. I am Olive MOD.
And I'm Benga Bora. Olive, we love you too.
We love you back.